Hey guys, welcome to That Florida Feeling. I hope everybody's having a good week. I know that there's been a lot of stuff going on. I know it's still kind of everybody's recovering. I hope that everybody's still doing good. I hope that if you've needed help that you've been able to get it. Thanks to everybody who's interacted with the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok pages. I do still have a thing on Instagram. It's under the little highlights that you can go to for resources. Don't be afraid to use them. You'd be surprised what help you can get when you don't think about it. Plus, I love hearing all the stories of neighbors coming together and helping each other and communities coming together. I think it's great, especially during these times. I think we're all just burnt out. I know that it's hard. And sometimes it doesn't hit you for a couple days, couple weeks, sometimes even a month later. Like, you're tired and it just hits you. Like, it's true. It's real. You're just one day, you're just done. But we're here to help you. You know, you're not alone in this. You have resources. So feel free to reach out. If you just need to say hi, if you just need someone to talk to, you can catch me on Facebook. You can email me at thatfloridafeel@gmail.com. I get it, guys. I get it. It's tiring, you know, back-to-back hurricanes, dealing without power for days, losing your food. It's tough. So I'm here. I'm with you guys. I get it. If you just want to say hi, if you need someone to talk to, please reach out, say hi. If you need to know where resources are, let me know, and I will see what I can do to figure it out to help you guys. If not, definitely find FEMA, the Red Cross, Feeding Florida, other communities. Reach out. You know, there's plenty of people who are here to help you. You're not alone, guys, through this. Sorry about last week. Been going through a lot of personal stuff as well as the hurricanes. Thank you for everybody who's reached out about my recent loss. You guys are amazing. Thank you for that, for all the kind words. I'm recording this a little bit early because I'm going to be dealing with that on Friday. But thank you for the kind words as I go through this. Also, if you haven't checked out Unfiltered Studios, then I encourage you to definitely check it out. There's some amazing people over there. You can find a wide variety of shows with some amazing podcasts. Definitely check it out if you haven't. So since it's still spooky month and we talk about a lot of paranormal and true crime, and last week we re-listened to our ghost stories with Q, this week we're going to talk about some true crime. And today we're going to talk about a person that kind of really captivated Florida for a short amount of time, even if the only thing they really did in Florida was stand up for their family and literally make their last stand in Florida. And I'm talking about Ma Barker. And Ma Barker was a really interesting character. And she literally made her last stand here in Florida. Now, Ma Barker was originally born Arizona Donnie Clark, which I think that's a pretty cool name compared to Ma Barker. I'm just saying. She was born on October 8th, 1873. And she was actually known as Kate Barker or Ma Barker at the end of her life. She was born and raised in Missouri, and she eventually married George Barker in 1892. She had two sons. Herman was born in 1893, and Lloyd was born in 1897. Then she went on to have a couple more. Arthur would be born in 1899, and then Fred was born in 1901. The reason it said she had two sons is because a lot of times it's only reported that she had two, but if you dig, she actually had four. And I'm like, did we just not want to talk about two of them? Like, all four of them come into play in her life a lot, but a lot of people are like, she had two. No, she had four. All four of them had issues. Now, she married George, and George wasn't exactly the best. He wasn't exactly a great breadwinner, and he often changed jobs due to losing them frequently. He couldn't really hold a job. He didn't really pay attention to his sons, and he didn't really try to make ends meet. Kate, unfortunately, tried to make ends meet, which meant that between the two of those people, the boys tended to suffer. The boys didn't get a good education. They didn't have a lot of good role models, which means that not only did they end up not doing the right thing a lot of times, they were actually illiterate at pretty much the end of till the end of their lives. So, which meant that the Barker sons didn't really understand to do the right thing. So, a lot of times they did the wrong thing. They actually began to commit crimes as early as 1910 when Herman was arrested for highway robbery after running over a kid in a getaway car. And of course, they didn't just stop there. The brothers continued to commit crimes, and they would get worse and worse as time went on, such as robbery all the way up to murder. They were actually inducted into the Central Park Gang, which led to Herman's death. Herman actually died in August of 1927 in Wichita, Kansas, after a robbery and a confrontation with the police that went wrong and left one officer dead. Herman, not to be one to be taken alive, decided to kill himself to avoid prosecution. So you can see how kind of this family operates. Now, the rest of the brothers were in jail for other serious crimes when Herman killed himself. And Ma lived in serious poverty since her husband couldn't keep a job. She obviously didn't have the best life either. Ma and George lived in a dirt floor shack, and most people thought that she might have prostituted just to get by in that dirt poor shack. She eventually left George for other men until her son Fred got out of jail in 1931, and Fred was determined to keep his ma from having a bad life. At least they cared for their mother. They may not have cared for other people, but they were determined to take care of their mother. Now, Fred and his cellmate formed the Barker Karpus Gang, and this gang started to commit a series of robberies in Missouri, killing people along the way until they killed the wrong person. They killed Sheriff C. Roy Kelly. Of course, when you kill the wrong person, you can no longer stay in your area, no matter how good you are to the people around that area, so they had to flee. And of course, Ma went with them. And she even got a reward poster out of this. She might not have even done anything, but now she had a poster out for her capture. She was now officially in the gang as Old Lady Barker, or Kate. So now whether she did anything or not, she was now an official member of the gang, and now she was on the lam, and now she was wanted. Arthur was eventually released from jail and joined up with his brother's gang and his mom in 1932. They were in Chicago, but left because they didn't want to work with Al Capone. There's differing reasons on why they didn't want to work for Al Capone, but I'm sure we can all figure out why they didn't want to work for Al Capone. They actually ended up north in St. Paul, and they were under the protection of St. Paul's police chief, Thomas Big Tom Brown, and they went from being bank robbers to kidnappers under the police chief's guidance. So just think about that. In the 1930s, if you made friends with the police chief and you paid off the right person, he would even tell you who to rob and where to go. Sounds like an amazing law enforcement officer. Now, Ma kept herself busy. She even got a boyfriend. Her boyfriend at the time was Al Dunlap, but they didn't like him. The sons didn't like him. And I know that sometimes when a mom gets a new boyfriend, they're not liked. Well, they really didn't like this guy. They didn't trust him because he liked to talk a lot when he was drinking. And Karpus even pretty much described him as just a pain in the ass. They didn't like him because he was usually the reason they had to move around so much, because he was identified way too easily and talked way too much. And eventually they took care of him. They murdered him as they were traveling. You could say cut ties, took care of loose ends, however you want to put it, but he was gone. I don't think Ma was too sad about it. But Ma was always kept in separate safe houses or hotels, away from the gang and out of the gang's activities, and always kept away from the girlfriends. She always made it well known if she didn't like the girlfriends. She also didn't want to be involved in the activities, and the sons really didn't want her involved in the activities. That way she had plausible deniability. She could always deny anything when asked, which I think is smart and also kind of nice of her sons, you know. But the gang eventually pulled off a kidnapping that netted the gang a $200,000 ransom before the FBI caught on. Now, of course, when the FBI gets involved, it's pretty much on, especially back in the 1930s. You're talking about manhunts all the time. So the FBI eventually discovered the hideout of Barker and Fred after Arthur was arrested in Chicago in January of 1935. And they found a map in his possession that indicated the other gang members were in Ocklawaha, Florida. So the FBI realized that they were no longer in the north. They had fled south, and they were going to go after them. So the FBI identified the house where gang members were staying after they had talked to locals. They had referenced a letter that mentioned Gator Joe. They talked to the locals. They realized who was supposed to be around, who wasn't, who was the newcomers, who people didn't talk to, who people did talk to, and figured out that the gang had rented the property under the false name Blackburn as a vacation retreat. So the FBI now knew that not only the gang, but Ma Barker was now in Florida. So they were going to head to Florida. So agents went to the house at 13250 East Highway C25 on the morning of January 16th and surrounded it. The FBI did not have surveillance on the house, so they didn't know that Karpus and the other gang members had actually left a few days earlier. So the only people actually in the house were Fred and Ma. So basically now they're going to surround a house that they think there are a lot of people in because they didn't do their work. They didn't take their time. They just got a tip, talked to a few people, and decided, hey, this is where they are. We're going to go for it. And yeah, you see how this could go. So they go to the house, assuming there's a bunch of people, but there's only Fred and Ma. They order them to surrender, and Fred's like, nah, we're not doing this. So he opens fire. So, of course, when he opens fire, they fire back. And for all intents and purposes, this is a complete shit show. Like, the shootout is absolutely a shit show. And what makes it even better is they didn't evacuate anybody around this house. So the locals are coming out. They want to see it. I mean, this thing is hours long. People even started to hold picnics around this house to see how long this is going to take and who's going to win. And since the FBI had not told any neighbors this was happening, when two neighbors went running from their house because their house is now getting shot up, the FBI started to fire at the two women thinking that they were gang members. So yeah, you talk about great surveillance. The FBI used tear gas in the shootout. I mean, they didn't, like, this was just not good. The shootout was so intense that, like, neighbors' houses were getting shot up. People were ducking for cover. The people holding picnics were kind of intrigued. Like, and what's funny is like, you don't hear about a ton of extra casualties, really, at all. But eventually the shootout ended. The agents ended up firing over 500 bullets. 500 bullets. But according to reports, 250 shots were returned. Now, that's according to reports. Nobody knows if that's actually true or not. And nobody even really knows if Ma Baker ever... Sorry, I want to call her Baker. It's Barker. Ma Barker ever even actually fired a shot. FBI had a local handyman, Willie Woodbury, put on a bulletproof vest and go inside. The FBI agents wouldn't even go inside themselves. They got this local handyman to do it. Why a trained FBI agent wouldn't go inside is absolutely beyond me, especially if these people were still alive and would have fired at this guy. Like, that's just stupidity all in itself, but we won't go there. But thankfully for Willie, Ma and Fred were both found dead in the front bedroom. Fred was actually riddled with bullets with a total of 14 shots in him, 3 to the head. Ma was found with a single gunshot wound to the head. That's it. Single shot. FBI accounts have said that she was found with a Tommy gun in her hands, but other sources at the scene said it was between her and Fred. So nobody really knows. And of course, whoever wins always gets to make up the story. So we don't really know. And I don't really believe that she was going to be found with a Tommy gun. I also don't know if I believe she only had one single shot to the head. But their bodies were put on display. So, I mean, if a lot of people saw it, maybe there really was only one shot to the head. So they were put on display, and then they were stored unclaimed until October 1st to be buried next to Herman in Welsh, Oklahoma. So these people got shot in January, and then they were stored unclaimed until October. That's a long time. Like, that's months, y'all. That's a long time. But anyways, Ma Barker managed to go from an unassuming poor woman that nobody really knew, who was just trying to take care of her sons, who was married to a deadbeat guy, to now the supposed leader of a gang that had a standoff in a small Florida town that nobody had ever heard of until now. A lot of people have also given her, her last stand and the leader of the gang is nothing more than the work of fiction, thanks to J. Edgar Hoover, the leader of the new FBI at the time, to make them look a whole lot better. I think that's probably true. They probably just did that to justify the killing of an older, probably unarmed woman who just really wanted to be around her sons. But since the FBI was new and they just shot up a house, didn't evacuate anybody, didn't do any surveillance, and had to justify shooting up a house for 2 people, they had to do something. Whatever. The town that the last stand of the gang took place in is an unincorporated community in Marion County, which is north of Orlando. It's still there today. And this small town is home to maybe 1,500 people these days. It would have been home to many less back then. Ocklawaha is probably most well known for Ma's last stand. And they actually put on a reenactment every year for this shootout. And it's actually fun, and it draws a lot of people to the town. The town does sit on the north shore of Lake Weir and is bordered to the east by Silver Springs shores. Ocala and Leesburg are about 18 miles in opposite directions from the small town. And the town has used the last stand really to kind of help itself. You'll find Ma Barker's Hideaway Bar and Gator Joe's Bar and Grill. So maybe there really was a Gator Joe. Now, the town is not large by any means, and it does sit right on the shores of the lake. So you can find a nice place for a short getaway. The Shamrock Thistle and Crown is a historic bed and breakfast not far from the shores of Lake Weir that you can stay in if you want to visit this, of course, or you can go to Ocala and Leesburg for a little bit more if you want to visit this small town for a day trip. But thanks to the FBI, who had absolutely no idea what they were doing, who just wanted to kill an old woman, apparently, who probably knew her kids were criminals and wasn't really guilty of anything but trying to be a good mom in the end. They put this tiny town on the map. So, thank you, FBI, for now letting us know who Ma Barker is and where Ocklawaha, Florida is. Hope you guys learned something new about a tiny town in Florida that got famous one day and has kept them relevant for many years later. I mean, I really didn't I had always heard about Ma Barker's gang, and you always think like, man, this woman had to be a badass. And then you read about it and you're like, that lady's not guilty of anything more than trying to be a good mom and wanting to be around her kids. And the FBI is guilty of absolutely everything more than being a screw up. I stopped myself. But you know what? I'm going to visit this town one day. I've probably driven past it and not even realized it. So I kind of want to go here. I kind of want to stop by the lake and see this small town and hopefully not run into Florida Man. Sounds kind of like a place Florida Man might hang out, honestly. Of course, today's Florida Man comes from kind of near there, near just north of Orlando. He was accused of stealing cheese and bug spray in a $400 worth of cheese and bug spray from everyone's favorite store, Walmart. He came, oh my God, I know where this is. I just read it. He came into the store on West Colonial Drive in Orlando with a backpack and a duffel bag, so we already know he's up to no good. He proceeded to take a rain jacket, a stove stand, cheese, chicken, can't forget the chicken, fried chicken, bug spray, and a few more items before a Walmart loss prevention officer caught up with him. He spent some time in the Orlando County Jail where I'm sure he hopefully doesn't need to worry about bug spray. But $400 worth of cheese and bug spray, guys. only at Walmart, and only Florida Man. All right, guys, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed learning about a small town in Florida and one woman's last stand. I hope you're enjoying Spooky Month. It's actually getting cold. It was actually in the 60s this morning. I was kind of excited. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, like, whatever you got to do to keep up with the podcast. Don't forget to check out Unfiltered Studios, guys. I hope you guys have a great week. Be kind to one another. Drink your water. Wear your sunscreen. And as always, guys, that's your daily dose of sunshine.
This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.